It that alters sanity greets you. For this video, I am not using VTuber software to abide by the software's terms and conditions. Generative AI that creates art of many forms is making society re-evaluate the relationships between machine, consumer, and creator. Copyright is the embodiment of that relationship after the printing press disrupted it. Back in the Roman Empire, there was no need for copyright. Making a copy used to be as expensive as creating the original, and would be imperfect too. When I see the topic of AI and copyright come up, too often I'm struck by how narrow the discussion is. Thus, I made this video to broaden perspectives as we debate this. Before I start, a disclaimer. I am not a lawyer. This video is not where to get the technical details of the law. I will talk of the general idea, the spirit of the law, and not the letter. When I say copyright, it will be in a layman's broad sense, blurring with other intellectual property laws. I'm also not going to dictate answers. You should come to your own conclusions, though I'll certainly sprinkle my opinion a little. Nor am I going to insist content creating AI is the biggest problem we have to solve with AI in general. I will also limit my discussion to narrow AI, i.e. a neural network that can only create content, not think. This video is split into 4 sections. The purpose of art, historic problems copyright addressed, a sample of problems that copyright of the future needs to address, and what we might do now while waiting for formal legislature. What is art? Mechanically speaking, it's the result of a mind observing the world, making connections, optionally filtering out the mundane ones, then changing a tiny portion of the world to present a story. Successful art conveys ideas and/or evokes emotions in the audience. Even if the art is not successful to the audience, it can still serve the purpose of the mind expressing itself, i.e. self-actualization, the final tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Mind, sometimes the artist is not satisfied, but the audience is. The word art typically refers to a painting, a sculpture, or music. Dancing and writing easily come to mind as well. The general description I gave earlier can apply to activities like bodybuilding, gardening, and home decorating. Indeed, the latest word that meets the prior definition of art is content. Why did humans evolve to have these urges? Problem-solving skills are an advantage in survival. The creation and consumption of art hones the mind to look for new connections and different perspectives. MarketSplash presented some statistics that over 70% of people have creative insights while taking a shower, and a similar percentage express a sense of underutilizing their creative capabilities. So the majority have basic creative ability, but only a minority are successful with it, meaning they devote years honing their body and mind to perceive, imagine, and create, such that fellow humans respect them for it. That is why the human artist will not disappear just because generative AI can also produce art. Whether they make a career out of creating art is another matter, but humans will continue to do it. Self-actualization will continue to urge humans to pursue art. In so doing, they hone their minds and inspire their peers so humans are ready to solve problems as they arise. When people talk of copyright, they typically only think of a narrow range of problems it addresses, namely stopping plagiarism. To better understand the variety of problems copyright addresses, let's look at some abstract examples relevant when copyright was first conceived. Consider the honest workflow of a creator. Author puts effort to create something. The audience observes the created work and is informed the author made it. The author's intellectual labor is publicly recognized. Assuming the work is beneficial to the audience, the author receives their gratitude, possibly with money. As I've said before, the original purpose of money was a tangible proxy for gratitude. The obvious dishonesty that copyright defends against looks like this. The fraud steals credit for the work. The reputation and money that should have gone to the author gets wrongly assigned. Copyright gives the author the right to strike down the fraud. This gives creators some peace of mind on staying economically viable. Here's a variant that plain wasn't economically viable back when copyright laws were first conceived. The pirate makes a copy of the work and gives it away for free. That's still denying money rightfully due to the author. Granted, not every free copy means a lost sale. Some people wouldn't take the product unless the price was zero. The credit still goes back to the author, so their reputation can still benefit. Exposure. That doesn't mean it's ethical to pay someone purely in exposure for work you hired them for. Remember, it's the author's copyright to limit their exposure in exchange for getting paid. The additional complication is if the author has some after-sales responsibility for each copy sold. The pirate is increasing the author's expenses without adding to the author's revenue. For example, software and customer support following that. An old dishonesty that's defended against by trademark, not copyright. A forger makes something, like a coin or a watch, made to look like a famous brand made it. I bring this up to contrast with the next example. The less obvious dishonesty that moral rights defend against. Someone forges the work of the author. The audience thinks the author made it. The work is harmful. The author is wrongly assigned the blame. Even if the audience doesn't consider it harmful, the author may. The blame doesn't have to come from the outside. Most people understand copyright as the legal power to stop undesired copying to protect an income source, a sort of financial instrument for creative works. There is another side to copyright in most jurisdictions today. Moral rights, or rights of authors, was recognized in France after the French Revolution. A century later, at the Berne Convention, a multinational agreement was made to coordinate copyright, so e.g. you couldn't escape copyright law by copying an English book in France. In a revision 4 decades later, moral rights were introduced to the International Copyright Agreement. Even then, not every jurisdiction that ratified the Berne Convention recognizes moral rights equally, most notably the United States, though some states of the US do recognize it. I'll leave a Wikipedia link in the description for those wanting more historic details. French copyright law treats a protected work as an extension of the personality of the author, which is protected by moral rights. These rights include the right to respect of the work's integrity and to protection of honor and reputation. So the original 18th century copyright laws between England and France differed on what to emphasize: incentivizing invention versus protecting the person, financial instruments versus inalienable right, along the tune of rights to life, education, privacy, and fair treatment before the law. Now, let's look at what new copyright problems occur with AI art, be that images, songs, or other creative endeavors. There's more at stake than just money. A prime example of AI making moral rights relevant is replicating someone's voice. Some professions require broadcasting and storing your voice on the internet. I'll draw a couple examples from singers, with sources linked in the description. When confronted with the replications while streaming live, they played off the fears to not overly concern their viewers. The requirement to constantly talk and react helped them not dwell on the situation while in public. The fear stems from two types of deception described earlier. A singing voice is a work that requires effort to hone. The pirate can use AI to replicate the singing for the price of some electricity. The singer's economic position is compromised. The forger can use AI to put offensive words in the singer's mouth, and the singer has to deal with the repercussions. Likewise, artists establish a particular art style, and humans attribute said style to be a person's voice. As before, enter the AI that enables a forger to quickly and cheaply make counterfeits. Even if the forger makes benign counterfeits, by distributing them in public, the audience gets confused which works of a particular art style really belong to the original artist. That means commissioners who give artists paid work have a harder time assessing the artist, so the artist gets less money. Producers of art can also harm each other with AI. Take actors. Veterans dominate the market share as the audience doesn't want to track too many celebrities. New actors still enter the industry because one day those veterans will retire and their replacements need to have been around already. With AI, the careers of veterans extend beyond retirement and death. Now, this is more the domain of competition law instead of copyright. I raise it as it's not good to limit thinking based on old subject boundaries. A more visceral example is deepfake porn. Usually with porn, there's the tacit assumption that the people on camera have consented to the action, that there's some sort of compensation, or at least a choice, an understanding that to create porn without that consent is a crime and thus something society will crack down on when discovered. To quote a news article on deepfake porn, you can sexually violate somebody without coming into any physical contact with them. Again, link in the description. To continue quoting, they've planted all this stuff in my head, these pictures. I can't unsee any of the images. I can't even see the perfectly unaltered originals in the same way either. Photos of happy moments in life turned into life-altering visual poison. Now, not all harm is the result of malice. I wouldn't be surprised if a majority aren't. See Hanlon's razor. The overall impression I get of the humans getting AI to produce cover songs of famous voices is curiosity and respect. Doubtless, there are some who actively want to cause harm. The Hollywood strike this year is about resisting the push to replace humans with generative AI on a flippant scale. Not the ban of AI, but insisting that AI should enhance jobs instead of replacing them. Humans disrespecting each other, intentionally or not, is what causes problems attributed to content creating narrow AI. I'm going to exclude the sci-fi possibility of AGI getting legal rights. Not saying it can't happen in the midterm future, but I'm limiting this discussion to the present situation. AI does not have its own agency. Humans make AI do things for human motivations. Trained, creative humans should not be replaced entirely with AI. Have you heard the joke, "I want my money back. You said this computer would do what I want, but it only does what I say"? Let's take image generation AI as an example. Unsophisticated users can get generically decent artwork out of generative AI with some words in the text prompt. Their untrained eyes are easily satisfied, so they stop early. Skilled users have a richer vocabulary to specify the text prompt and seek additional controls to better specify the image they have in their mind. They start with choosing the right model for the job, modding it with LoRa's, subdividing the image with latent couple to target words at specific regions, and or constraining the image with ControlNet. A head ControlNet image can be hand-drawn to guide the AI in what the user really wants. Thus, prior skill with a drawing pen remains an advantage in getting better output from AI. After the AI did its work, these users can then roll up their sleeves and fix the merely decent output, or at least curate and iterate with the AI. Keeping up to date with the various tools and controls being developed for generative AI requires time, just like practicing drawing. That inclination doesn't come to just anyone. AI wasn't created out of some malicious desire to erase creativity from humans. It is just another creation born from the creative urges of humanity. There are a lot of problems to solve in this world, more than we have natural capacity for. That the solutions we think up introduce their own problems is just human nature. Or more precisely, the people who create often aren't going to think of all the twisted ways other humans can exploit what they made. I've heard of an artist streaming the creation of a picture, only to discover someone in the audience took their sketch and fed it to AI to finish it faster. Then they tried to claim the artist was stealing their work. I've read an article, link in description, of someone who tried to obtain the financial instrument side of copyright over AI-generated artwork. Going broader, I recall a quote that fake people are to democracies what fake money is to economies. Those who do not study history repeat it, as to them it's never happened before. AI is hardly the first time technological innovation made skilled people obsolete. For a time, the Catholic Church banned the crossbow from wars between Christians because it was overpowered. An archer needed years of training funded by someone else to be good with a bow, not to mention the strength training for sustained performance. Any peasant could be trained to use a crossbow in a few weeks. The Industrial Revolution saw large changes in society due to technology making lifelong artisans obsolete. How did society react? Let's briefly look at the clothing industry as an example. To oversimplify, you have labor to grow the raw materials, producers to turn that into clothes, deliverers to bring that to market, and consumers who buy them. In the medieval era, once the serfs had grown the cloth or leather, you needed many artisans to sew them into clothes and then many traveling merchants to deliver them to the few people who could afford them. Get to the industrial era and you needed fewer people in the middle. Machines could do the work more cheaply provided there was access to ample coal and iron, a condition met in various parts of the world, especially with colonialism. The fewer middle jobs required different skills. Those who successfully made the transition grew more powerful and enjoyed improved standards of living as they could buy the factory output. Those who didn't ended up in worse conditions. Players of Victoria 3 know that automation reduces jobs, and if new jobs haven't been created to catch those made redundant, revolutions happen. A sense of unfairness grew from the dangerous, underpaid factory work. Medieval lords profiting from the deaths of commoners was a familiar power dynamic, yet somehow seeing it play out while surrounded by machines gave new perspective. Ideologies sprung up, suggesting a different way to structure ownership. They succeeded in environments where the lowest rungs of the economic ladder didn't sufficiently benefit from the introduction of the machines. The Industrial Revolution treated redundant employees as somebody else's problem and was essentially a gamble that it would be solved before the pain boiled into revolution. The somebody else who picked up that responsibility were legislators and other workers. Not that those two entities were in harmony. Laws were passed to ban or impede unions, but sympathy grew for the plight of the worker, so they were allowed in the 19th century. Unions are a bit like insurance. A single poor worker is powerless to afford legal advice or negotiation savvy. A collective that receives payments from its members can afford it. This arrangement lost its appeal when labor laws gave adequate protection to the worker, and when manufacturing moved overseas due to globalization. I won't digress into whether globalization will continue into the future. The point I make is that people got together to protect each other while laws were slowly forming. Back then, it was a prominent minority owning land and factories, so the majority had a relatively easy target to rally against. The problem with AI today is how accessible it is to a great many people who have not been made aware how it can bring harm unintentionally. Until we get around to updating our legislature on protecting creative careers, existing copyright laws is what we have to make do with. Ancient protocols which were never designed for the problems of today. They are still better than nothing. If you've ever worked on a large software project, this is a familiar feeling. The code you have is never the code you want, but you can't afford the downtime of throwing it away to rewrite everything from scratch. When the requirements change and the code needs to adapt fast, loose code gets written. The algorithm undergoes rapid, small revisions to shake out bugs. Then a refactor follows to formally write up the new arrangement. Doing nothing while waiting for formal legislature is not an option. Society needs to come up with interim solutions before that. Among the somewhat decent folk on the internet, I get the impression there's an unofficial consensus forming. Generative AI is here to stay. Running it for your own personal sense of achievement is okay, but don't try to sell it. Certainly, be honest that a creation is AI generated. This is a reasonable stance, rooted in a compromise between personal freedom and not harming others. While there are people who view freedom to include the lack of inhibition to harm others, the people upholding this stance don't sign up to that view. This video has been pointing out the flawed assumptions which lead to bad results from such good intentions. What motivates uploading AI-generated art to the public sides of the internet? It's now common knowledge that AI has this ability. There's no longer a point uploading to inform the public. What remains is a desire for social acknowledgement, to show people you made something happen and get a reaction. In the age of social media, this desire is apparently sated with numbers labeled likes or shares. So the majority of viewers who see AI-generated art, assuming it's any good, get mildly excited enough to tap a button in response. A few may go as far as typing a few dozen characters to express their reaction. Meantime, there will be a few people who receive quite significant harm depending on exactly what the art is, all the way up to feeling sexually violated. That does not feel fair. That is why, personally, I draw the line at don't upload it to a public space. Treat it with the same respect as radioactive material. Uploading to a public space means taking no responsibility for who sees it. I would like decent folk on the internet to care about potential collateral damage, to choose specific individuals to show what they got AI to make, or at least limiting it to communities requiring some sort of vetting. That concludes my current thoughts on AI art. Making art is a feature of humanity which will not stop just because a machine can do it too. Renegotiating the relationship between art creator, art subject, consumer, and machine isn't the highest priority of legislators in today's world. So while copyright law slowly gets updated, decent people can get organized to come up with an interim arrangement that's fair for all involved. It that alters sanity thanks you for your time.